we are picking up, I believe, with Sir Gawain talking with the porter. This is in Fit 4. I can't tell you what page number because I left my third edition at home. Around, let's say 2118. We're going to skip over these next several lines very quickly, but kind of begin there. The porter has been commanded by the knight of the castle to show Sir Gawain the way to the Green Chapel. And the porter tells him there, actually beginning a little bit before 2118, leave the knight alone, ride home, go home by a different direction. I'll tell everybody I led you straight to the chapel. No one will be the wiser. Okay? And Sir Gawain says, in response, I truly believe you would keep my secret. You wouldn't tell a soul. Line 2129. But however closely you kept it, if I avoided this place, took to my heels in fright in the way you propose, I should be a cowardly knight and could not be excused. But I will go to the chapel, whatever may chance, and discuss with that man whatever matter I please, whether good or ill come of it, destiny decide, blah, blah, blah. Okay? His faithful servants, God knows well how to defend. Now, we already know what happened the previous day. Sir Gawain met with let me rephrase that. The lady of the castle met with Sir Gawain, begged something from him. He doesn't have anything. She says, I'll give you something. She offers a ring. He says no. She gives him the green girdle. He says no. She says, you say that because you think it's worthless, etc. If you knew its power, and then tells him, anyone who wears this cannot be killed. He accepts it. He doesn't give it to the night before. So, as we saw before, day 1, deer, kiss. Day 2, boar, kiss. Day 3, fox, sash. These are what Sir Gawain receives. Then what he gives the knight as part of the agreement in each of those evenings. So by giving a kiss and not the sash, what does Sir Gawain do?
He breaks the deal.
Breaks the deal. He violates the laws of their verbal contract. Okay? The other man says, cool, line 2140, marry, in other words, all right. Since your words make it clear you will deliberately bring harm on yourself, lose your life by your own wish, I won't hinder you. Put your helmet on your head, take your spear, ride down this track, go over the rock by there. You'll see the chapel. Okay? Sir Gawain rides along, 2156. By God himself, I shall not moan or cry. My life is in his hands. His will I shall obey. Because they rhyme. Okay? True or false? Why?
Because he knows, like, I've got this. Well, I can't be killed, but I'm going to say it's up to God anyway, even though it was me.
Okay? He's true or false to whom?
To God, I guess.
Can you lie to God? I mean, assume for a moment you believe that there is a God. Can you lie to God? No, because God knows everything, right? I mean, by standard definitions, all-knowing, all-powerful, etc. Okay? You can't lie to him. You can attempt to. Who's he really lying to? Himself. Notice this is to himself. Spurs on his horse. He goes to the edge of a wood, rides down the rugged hillside to the valley. He looks about him, seems a wild place. So notice, when on Christmas Eve he's in the wood, he looks through, and what does he see kind of, once he does all of his prayers and crosses himself 3 times, he sees kind of in a distance through the woods, what? He sees a hill, and on the hill is a castle, and the castle surrounded by trees. Okay? Now, he's left the hill of the castle, he's ridden back down, he's on level ground, then he follows the directions the porter gives him, and now he goes down into a dell or a valley. It's kind of like, notice my qualifying language, kind of, I'm not saying it is, but it's kind of like going into the ground, subterranean. Okay? He doesn't see any buildings. There's just steep hillsides on both sides, rocky crags, jagged stones, etc., etc. He keeps looking for the chapel, and it's almost like he's going, I'm here, there's no chapel there, I'm going to leave. Except way off in a glade. Now, what's a glade? We're in an area known for its Cedar Glades. Back when I chaired a university committee decades ago, there was a guy in biology, botany, something like that, who'd written a couple of books on native plants in Tennessee. He was doing research on the native cedar glades in Middle Tennessee, which are slowly dying out because they're getting, paved over and putting up parking lots, to allude to Jimmy Buffett. He sees a glade, and in the glade, something like a mound. Not quite a mirror image of the castle, but it's close. Okay? Around it, hillock on the bank of a stream near the bed of a torrent that tumbled there. Water foamed in its course as though it had boiled. Kind of similar to the portrayal of Grindelsmere and Beowulf. I don't think the poet was familiar with that at all. The poet wouldn't have been able to read it. Okay? So, ties his horse and he walks towards this mound. He sees a fissure in an old rock. He wonders what to call this thing. 2185. Good Lord. Can the Green Chapel be this place? Here, probably at midnight, the devil his matins says. Notice the idea or ideas that Sir Gawain immediately jumps to or assumes. Back up a little bit. He goes around the mound, walks all the way around it, wondering what it is. It had a hole at the end and on either side. So here's this mound. And it has a hole here. And then what does it say? On either side. So it sounds like here and here should be round. It's all covered with patches of grass, so it's green. Nothing inside but an old cave. Now truly, this is a desolate place. This chapel looks evil, with grass overgrown. Here, fittingly, might the man dressed in green perform his devotions in devilish ways. Now all my senses tell me that the devil himself has forced this agreement on me to destroy me here. This is a chapel of disaster. May ill luck befall it. It's the most damnable church I was ever inside. Why does Sir Gawain say/think all of that? He's never seen this place before. He hasn't seen anybody here. He hasn't heard anything here. He's seen no signs of human habitation here. We're not told that the holes in the mound are natural or unnatural. He even describes, he says, could be a fissure in an old rock, as far as he knows. What's going on up here in Sir Gawain's mind? What is he not showing? Let me put it that way, possibly. Bravery. What else? What were his words to the porter and on his way to this location? It's all God's will. I trust in God's will. As God is my helper, he channels Scarlett O'Hara and such. Now, God's not here. God was with me on the way, but God's not here. Again, why? It's his own fear speaking this. Go back to the 5 5s that the pentangle supposedly represents. Fear anywhere on there? No. He's brave. He's courageous. He has faith. What's happened to his bravery? What's happened to his courage? What's happened to his faith? So he climbs to the top of the dwelling, and then, so he climbs up, and once he gets up there, it's almost like he takes that last step and he suddenly hears whoosh, 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 the sound of a giant grinding wheel turning and a piece of steel going whoosh, whoosh, being sharpened on it. By God, these doings, I suppose, are a welcoming ceremony arranged in my honor as a knight. In other words, whoever's here is trying to scare the bejeebies out of me. God's will be done, And then, alas, helps me no whit here, although my life be lost, noise cannot make me fear. Can't it? Again, my reading, he's trying to psych himself up. He is feeling fear. Okay? So he shouts, "Who is master of this place to keep tryst with me? If you're here, speak. If not, I'm giving you 10 seconds." I showed up. It's New Year's Day. For now is good going and waiting right here. If anyone wants something, let him hurry here fast. Either now or never to settle his affairs. Now, the implication, he's kind of hoping for nothing. But he immediately hears, "Wait. You shall quickly have all that I promised you once." And he hears a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And he kept making that whirring noise for a while and turned back to his whetting before he would come down. Whetting, sharpening his sword/axe or whatever it is. He makes his way among the rocks, bursting out of a hole, whirling out of a nook with a fearsome weapon. A Danish axe newly made for dealing the blow, with a massive curving blade on the haft, honed with a whetstone 4 feet across. So, you've got the blade, you got this. Danish axe looks like that. This is 4 feet. It's kind of like the twin, the brother of the one that Sir Gawain used on the knight. All in green again. Sir Gawain meets him, makes a frosty bow. What's meant by frosty?
It's like, that's like barely.
Yeah, it's just, barely. I'm not going to take my eyes off of you. And the other said, "Good sir, a man may trust your vow." Way to go, Sir Gawain. You held true. You were honest. May God protect you. Go back for a second. 2189. This is a desolate place. No, take that back. Da-da-da-da-da. Where is the line I'm looking for? Yes. This is a desolate place. This chapel looks evil with grass overgrown. Here fittingly might the man dressed in green perform his devotions in devilish ways. Would someone performing devotions in devilish ways say, may God protect you? No.
Seems pretty nice, actually.
Seems pretty nice, right? You are indeed welcome, sir, to my place. You have timed your journey as true men should. You know the agreement settled between us 12 months ago. You took what fell to your lot, and I was to repay you promptly at this new year. And here we are in this valley by ourselves. No knights to separate us, so we can fight as we please. Keep in mind, the knight's like this tall. Okay? Take your helmet off your head, and here, get your pay. So what's he telling us by saying take your helmet off?
Like, it's not going to be serious?
No.
Oh no, it's gonna be serious.
Why?
Because the knight's about to give him the
Blow for blow. As you strike me, I will strike you. Okay? That's kind of the way he's reading the agreement. Make no more argument than I offered you then. That is, don't try to talk me out of it. What did I do? We agreed. I bent over, pulled my hair up, pulled my shirt back, and said, have at it. When you slashed off my head with a single stroke. Notice what the Green Knight is doing. Payback's fill in the word, Sir Gawain, no, by God who gave me a soul, I shall bear you no grudge at all. Whatever hurt comes about, shall bear. He doesn't say, I bear you no grudge at all, because that would be present tense. Shall bear means in the future. Why will he not bear a grudge? Because he's going to be dead, okay? Just limit yourself to one blow, and I will stand still and not resist whatever it pleases you to do at all. And he bends over and bows. Okay? And seeming unafraid. There's that subjunctive verb again. Indicates a condition contrary to fact. Sir Gawain is afraid. And we're going to be shown in just a moment. Green Man gets ready, raises his terrible axe to give Gawain the blow with all the strength in his body. He heaves it in the air and swings it as fiercely as if meaning to mangle him. Had he brought the axe down as forcefully as he acted, that courteous knight would have been killed by the blow. But Sir Gawain glanced sideways at that battle axe as it came sweeping down, and he does this. He hunches his shoulders up. Why? What effect does that do? It makes it like there's no neck. When you do this, okay, put your shoulders back down, there's a target to hit. What does it really mean he's doing? I had this written on the board the other day. He flinches. What is flinching a sign of? Fear. Okay? The other man checked the bright steel with a jerk and then rebuked him. You're not Gawain, who is reputed so good, who never quailed from an army on valley or hill, and now flinches for fear before he feels any hurt. I never heard of such cowardice shown by that knight. I didn't flinch. Okay? So I deserve to be reckoned the better man for that. I'm one up on you, Sir Gawain. Gawain, I flinched once, but I won't twice hunch my neck. Okay? Even though if my head should fall, I cannot put it back. What's his point? I mean, beyond the obvious point. What's the not obvious point? How did you do that little trick, by the way? I saw your head roll. Guys were kicking it. Hurry up. Come to the point. Deal out my fate to me and do it out of hand. For I shall let you strike a blow and not move again until your axe has hit me. Take my true word. Okay? So, what happens? The knight feints a swing. Picks the axe up and acts like he's going to come down. And Sir Gawain doesn't flinch. Okay? He swings the axe savagely without harming the man. Checks his blow just before it could hit. Sir Gawain waits, stands still as a tree, and then the Green Knight says, 2296. So now you have found courage. It is time for the blow. Okay, now we can get down to brass tacks. Sir Gawain, strike away. You waste time. 2305, he takes his stance to strike. That is, like Sir Gawain kind of did, puts that left foot forward. He's going to swing with all of his might. Puckering mouth and brow, no wonder if Gawain feels no hope of rescue now. He swiftly raises the weapon, brings it down straight with the cutting edge of the blade over Gawain's bare neck. Although he struck fiercely, he hurt him no more than to slash the back of his neck, laying open the skin. All that means, go back to the Middle English 2312, it severed the hide. That just means there's a cut. You don't have to think of it as a deep cut. Okay? The blade cut into the body through the fair flesh so that bright blood shot over his shoulders to the ground. It doesn't mean, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, psh, 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 blood spewing out. And when the knight saw his blood spatter the snow, he leapt forward with both feet more than a spear's length. The spear, anywhere from 6 to 8 feet long. So Sir Gawain, armed, jumps from here to where that desk is. 6 foot standing broad jump was what we used to call those. Pulls out his sword and says, hold your deck, don't try it. I've passively taken a blow in this place. Okay? He says, if you try it again, I'm going to fight you. Contract is my proof. Witness in Arthur's Hall, etc., etc. The knight just stands there. Arms resting on the haft, the handle of the axe. Leaning on the blade. And he thinks about it. He's contemplating Sir Gawain. Seeing how valiant, fearlessly bold he stood there, armed and undaunted, he admires him. And then he speaks to him loudly. Brave sir, don't act so wrathfully in this place. No one has discourteously mistreated you here. Discourteously, against the laws of courtesy. No one has violated any laws of courtesy here. Towards you. Notice, he doesn't say, no one has acted discourteously. He says, no one has acted discourteously to you. Okay? Or acted contrary to the covenant sworn at the king's court. I promised you a blow, you have it. Think yourself well paid. I free you from the rest of all other obligations. Wait, what other obligations? See, that's got to be what's going through Sir Gawain's mind. What obligations? He goes back a year and a day, or he goes back a year and he's thinking, were there any other obligations we discussed back at Camelot? Had I been more dexterous, what does dexterous mean? Handy. Good with his hands. Sir Gawain, one of his 5'5", is dexterous in his 5 fingers. Okay? Had I been more dexterous, maybe I could have dealt you a more spiteful blow. to have roused your anger. Why spiteful? Spite is usually arised by what? If you feel spite for somebody, why?
Because you feel like you've been wrong.
Bingo. Because somebody's done something against you. So you want to spite them back, you know? First, I threaten you playfully with a pretense. The swain flinch. Okay? And avoided giving you a gash, doing so rightly because of the agreement we made on the first night. And what do we suddenly discover? The Green Knight is whom? The Lord of the castle. The agreement they made on the first night, I'll go hunting in the morning. Whatever I get, I'll give to you. Whatever you get staying here at the castle, you give to me. Okay? When you faithfully and truly kept your pledged word, gave me all your winnings. The other feint, sir, the second one, okay, I gave you for the next day, when you kissed my lovely wife and gave me those kisses. For both occasions, I aimed at you 2 mere mock blows without harm. True man must pay back truly. Then he need nothing fear. You failed me the third time, and took that blow, therefore. You failed me this time. That's why I cut you. For it's my belt you are wearing there. That same woven girdle, my own wife gave it to you. And Sir Gawain's got to be sitting there, jaw dropping, ears burning, because he's not making sense of what he's hearing. Because this guy doesn't look like the Lord of the castle, because he wasn't green. My own wife gave it to you. I know well in truth. I know all about your kisses and your courteous manners, and my wife's wooing of you. That is, her attempted seduction. I arranged it myself. Okay, so pause for a second. What if Sir Gawain had not shown courteous manners? What if he had said, husband's away, mouse will play, you know? Okay, yeah, let's have at it, you know, with the wife. I sent her to test you. Where else have we heard the word test? On the second night. I've tested you twice. Third time's the throw. That is, third time takes it all. I don't know if this is somewhere in the back of the author's mind. It would not surprise me. But if you're familiar with the gospel story of the crucifixion, what happens the night before the crucifixion? Last Supper, Peter, says, I'm going to stick with you, Jesus, through thick and thin. Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Never. Peter denies him 3 times. Jesus resurrects. He sees Peter, and shortly before the ascension, he asks Peter, okay, so Peter denies him 3 times. He asks Peter 3 times, Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Yes, Lord, you know it. Come on, Lord, you know it. Feed my sheep, etc., etc. Why? 3 denials, 3 affirmations, kind of a thing. 3 tests, okay? I sent her to test you, and to me truly you seem one of the most perfect men who ever walked on the earth. As pearls are more valuable than white peas, so is Sir Gawain in all truth before other fair knights. Only here you fell short a little and lacked fidelity. What's fidelity? Faithfulness to whom? Faithfulness to the knight faithfulness to God, right? He didn't follow faithfully the terms of the agreement. He didn't give the knight what he won. Okay? Why not? But that was not for fine craftsmanship. You didn't take the belt because of its beautiful embroidery and its beautiful woven, weave and such. And you didn't do it because my wife won your heart. No. Why did you take it? Because you wanted to live. That's it. You just wanted to live. Meaning, you weren't prepared to die. That's a lack of fidelity. That's a lack of faith. Again, go back to the Gospels. He who would save his life must lose it. You want to follow me? You got to take up your cross. You want to be first? You got to be last. All that stuff. Okay? So I blame you the less. One of the, it's been said that one of the definitions, or one of the characteristics of life is if the living thing attempts to preserve its life. There have been all kinds of studies, Some plants, you hold a flame next to the plant and the plant will actually move away from the cause of the heat. It senses, not rationally somehow, but it senses it, okay? That other brave man stood speechless a long while. And again, I think his jaw's on the ground. He's got to pull himself together, so to speak. So mortified, what does that word mean?
Dead.
Made dead. So made dead and crushed that he inwardly squirmed. Okay, remember? He leaves the castle. He leaves the hill that the castle is on. He comes down. He goes through a valley, a dell, comes up onto the quote-unquote green chapel. Is there symbolism there? I think so. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. So mortified and crushed that he inwardly squirmed, all the blood in his body burned in his face, so that he went with shame. And his first words, a curse upon cowardice and covetousness. Cowardice. Sir Gallen thinks he was a coward. Why? Because he wanted to live. Courageous men do what? What did those cops do yesterday in Nashville? Unlike the cops in Uvalde, Texas, unlike the cops in Parkland, Florida, they went to the sound of gunfire. They didn't stop. They went directly to it. 13 minutes from the first moment they got the call to stopping the shooter. Uvalde, Texas was over an hour before anything happened. Parkland was like nearly an hour. A courageous person moves to danger rather than fleeing from it. Covetousness, that's what? Wanting something, just wanting something. I drive a 20-year-old beat-up Chevy Tahoe. My son, who's 21, just bought, and he's making payments on it. So, a 6 or 7-year-old, really nice BMW. Really nice. Looks brand new. Okay? I wouldn't mind having a BMW. Is that covetousness? I don't want my son's. I'd actually want a newer one. Okay? That's not covetousness. Because covetousness is wanting something of somebody else's, ultimately. Okay? She told him what the belt would do, and he's like, yeah, I'll take that. Thank you very much. You, cowardice and covetousness, breed boorishness and vice that ruin virtue. What's boorishness? Rudeness? What else? Usually it's applied to men. This is one of those terms that is almost never applied to women. If a man is described as a boor, what's being said about that? Other than rude. If you're talking about his relationships with women, it means he's kind of a pig. Just wants one thing. Okay? So it's lack of manners also, lack of courtesy. That's really what he's getting at about boorishness. It's the whole denial of all of the code of chivalry and, if there are any, the good part of courtly love. Because all of courtly love, let me rephrase this. Courtly love, the ideals in it aren't entirely bad. Okay? Yes, adultery is at the heart of it. That's bad. Well, I would argue that's bad. Okay? But self-denial, that's a good thing. The problem is it's self-denial in search of a wrong or bad goal. Sex with a married woman, kind of a thing. But the self-denial part, in and of itself, that can be good. Okay? So boorishness and vice that ruin virtue. They stain virtue. He takes hold of the belt, throws it at him. He flung the belt violently. There it is, the false thing. Really? The belt's like this marker. Say one of you gave me this marker and said, Dr. Sherman, you carry this marker with you, you can never be harmed. Cool. And then something happens, throw it. Here, Devon, you take it now. You get harmed, kind of a thing. The false thing, may the devil take it. And he throws it at the Green Knight. Why? Is he saying the Green Knight's the devil? Well, he was before the Green Knight showed up, because all the descriptions. What's he doing here? What's he really doing? What is the poet suggesting is the real import of this scene? This is the mark of my sin. I can get rid of it. Look, I'm clean. No, it's not the fault of the sash. For fear of your blow taught me cowardice. True or false? Did the fear...
I don't know that it taught him cowardice. I think it more along, it just made him feel vexed. So now he feels the need to look brave as opposed to actually ruminating on the fact that he did act cowardly and break the rules of the game.
Okay. What would maybe be a better verb than taught? I want to see. Hold on a second. What is the Middle English? What line is it? There it is. Yeah, the Middle English is taught. What other verb could we use? Did it teach him cowardice? He didn't know cowardice before, and the belt said, "You are a coward. You need me. I will protect you." No. What did it really do? Where was the cowardice? It exposed it. It revealed it. It showed it. In other words, there was a part of Sir Gawain, there was that cowardly element that I don't want to die. Okay? To give way to covetous, for your fear of your blow taught me cowardice, to give way to covetousness. That is, she has something that'll protect me from dying. I want it. And to be false to my nature. And then he qualifies nature. Okay? Here's what Sir Gawain says is his nature. The generosity and fidelity expected of knights. Okay? But what is meant by nature? I don't mean what Sir Gawain means by it. You've all surely heard of this. Nature versus nurture. It's a basic, thing in psychology. Are we the way we are because that's how we're born? Or are we the way we are because that's how we've been raised? Okay? Sir Gawain says his nature, what he is by birth, because that's what, when we're talking about human nature, that's what we're ultimately getting at. What we are at birth. He says that is generosity and fidelity. Wrong. Generosity and fidelity are what? Those are virtues to be learned. Okay? Take two children. Take them away from their parents. One of them, raise that child on the virtues of generosity and fidelity. The other child, raised on the virtues of covetousness and lying. And that's what they're going to be. Okay? He's denying his nature. He's denying human nature. The generosity and fidelity expected of knights. Now I am false and unworthy. Now, was he 20 minutes before? Yes, he was. Was he 6 hours before? Yes, he was. When was he false and unworthy? When he didn't follow through with the contract. What the sash did is it gave him the opportunity for that falseness and that unworthiness to betray itself or to show themselves. And have always dreaded treachery and deceit. May misfortune and grief befall both. That is, may misfortune and grief befall treachery and deceit. Sir, humbly I confess, my good name is marred. What has he just not done? Even though he says he has. He hasn't confessed. Because what does he begin with? My good name. I'm Sir Gawain, for Pete's sake. And now my name has been tarnished. Notice, good name is marred. What kind of voice is that? Active or passive? That's passive voice. Marred by what? Sir, I humbly confess, I have marred my good name. That would be a confession. But by saying my good name is marred, it's putting the agency for the marring out there. And what does he mean by his good name? He doesn't just mean Sir Gawain. It means everything I am and everything I hold dear. See, what he doesn't realize, what he's not admitting, because he doesn't realize it, is that his nature is marred. His nature, his humanity is flawed. That's one of the things the poet is getting at. This is a very religious poem, even though on the surface level it doesn't appear that way. Let me regain your trust. Next time I'll be on guard. Well, he had 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. If they do it again, is he never going to mar his name again? No. The other man laughs and graciously replies, the wrong you did me, I consider wiped out. It's gone. Why? Because you have so clearly confessed yourself, admitted your fault. See, the doctrine of confession is when you confess that sin, gone. Gone. It's wiped clean. Okay? You've admitted your fault and done honest penance on the edge of my blade. So this was the penance he had to endure. Okay? I declare you. Now, what did the Green Knight call himself when he was back at Camelot before he left? You know, the thing was, I'll tell you who I am and where I live after I receive your blow. And if I can't tell you, no problem. He said, I am called the Knight of the Green Chapel. Okay? What does he do? So, what is a chapel? It's like a small church. The person who operates, runs, whatever terminology you want to use, a chapel is some kind of cleric, some kind of priest or person in a religious order. Okay? I declare you absolved of that office and washed as clean as if you had never transgressed since the day you were born. That is part of the doctrine of confession, penance, absolution. When you admit the sin, the priest says a prayer, crosses his hand over you, and says, you are absolved. That is, everything you confessed and everything you didn't confess is wiped clean from this moment back. Okay? That's what the Green Knight has just done. Notice, since the day you were born. Why since the day you were born? Human nature. From Adam and Eve, human nature is, according to Catholic Augustinian doctrine, St. Augustine, human nature is flawed with original sin. Okay? What did Sir Gawain think about his nature? It was pure. See, he's just had a little introduction to, dogmatic theology, so to speak. So he says, guess what? I'll make you a gift of my gold-bordered belt, since it is green like my gown. Sir Gawain, you may remember this meeting in the world. That is, you may remember this meeting when you are back in the world. Now, are they in the world? Yes, they are. They're at a physical, location in the world. But they're not in the world in the sense of being surrounded by all the other knights of the round table. They're not in civilized, cultured world. They're out in the wild, right? This is like being in the desert. Which, by the way, 3 temptations. Christ, desert, 3 temptations. He says, you remember this meeting in the world where you mingle with princes of rank. It will be a true token. It will be a true It will be a true token of the exploit of the Green Chapel among chivalrous knights. And you can come back next year. Okay? We'll see out the revelry, etc. And I'll reconcile you with my wife, who was your cunning foe. Sir Gawain, nope. Takes his helmet off. I've stayed long enough. Good fortune attend you. May he who gives all honor soon send you reward. That's God. Okay? Or is it? Notice the he isn't capitalized. But I don't think it's capitalized earlier either. May he who gives all honor soon send you reward, and commend me to that gracious one, your lovely a wife, both the one and the other of those honorable ladies. He's saying, nope, I have to take my leave of you, give my thanks to your wife and the other lady, etc., who have so cleverly deluded their knight with their game. Deluded. What does it mean to be deluded? Tricked. Literally, to not see correctly. What has he just done? They tricked me. They deluded me. They enticed me. Where's he going? But it is no wonder if a fool acts insanely and is brought to grief through womanly wiles. It's it. Damn women. Always leading men astray. Okay? And what does he do? Adam goes back to the beginning. Adam would have been just fine if it hadn't have been for Eve. Okay? Standard trope throughout the Middle Ages, all the problems of sin in the world is because of Eve. In other words, us men, we'd be fine. Of course, there wouldn't be any men if there hadn't been Eve also. For so was Adam beguiled by one here on earth, Solomon by several. How several by Solomon? 300 wives, 700 concubines. Okay? Samson was another. Delilah, she enticed him. And afterwards, David with Bathsheba. Okay, look at the four examples is that four? Four examples he's just given. Eve, Adam, Solomon, Samson, David. Four men enticed/deceived by women. Which one of these four is not like the others? Or let me rephrase it this way. Which of the four women or groups of women, I have to say groups because of Solomon's wives and concubines, which of these four groups of women or women is not like the others? Because this one is very unlike the others. It's Bathsheba. Why? Eve, according to the Genesis account, did actively tempt her husband. Okay? Delilah did actively read the account about Samson in the book of Judges. Eve, you might be able to go, she didn't go, hey, Adam, come here, take a bite of this apple. It tastes really good. Okay? The serpent gave me and I did eat, Eve, Delilah, Samson's wives and concubines, they're the one who turned him away from worshiping God and going back to worshiping Ashtoreth and the Baalim and all those. What about Bathsheba? What do you know of the biblical story of David and Bathsheba? David goes outside his house, his palace one day, and he looks down because the palace is high and it overlooks the other buildings around the city of David. And he sees a beautiful woman on a rooftop several buildings away bathing. Okay? The very fact that she is out there bathing indicates this is normal behavior. She has a bath on the roof. Why? Maybe she understood, or her husband, Uriah, understood the sun heats water. So the water's warm. Whatever the cause, she's out there washing herself. David looks out the window and is like, He has her sent for. He sleeps with her. We're not told whether it is consensual or not. She gets pregnant. He sends her husband to fight in the front lines of the hottest part of the war. He gets killed. He marries her. That child dies. Then he has Solomon. The only way you could say Bathsheba is to blame is the fact that she does sleep with David. Whether or not it was her will to sleep with David, the biblical account does not say. Okay? What is Sir Gawon's whole point? How could I have resisted? I mean, women have been doing this to us men from the beginning of time. You're shaking your head. Why?
I just had a thought like, dang, that's some real insult behavior, but like.
Okay. What else? I mean, yeah, probably. Hasn't he just revealed something to us?
Well, I mean, he just kind of acts throughout this whole thing like people I've met who do something and then just don't. They're like blind to their own like fault in it. They're like, actually, it's your fault. Actually, it's your fault. Like everybody but themselves.
Why? It goes back to the original biblical account. God speaks to Adam in the garden. You know, Adam and Eve are hiding themselves. Why are you hiding? Because we're naked. Who told you you were naked? Did you eat of that fruit? Yes, we did. And Adam says, what? Notice what Adam doesn't say. Various church fathers kind of address this and say, if Adam had taken total responsibility, yes, Lord, I ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, kill me now. Some church fathers have said, if Adam had done that, wiped clean. Because that would be what? Total confession. He doesn't. What does he say? The woman you gave me the fruit and I didn't eat it. So God says, okay, woman, Eve, what did you do? The serpent gave it. Serpent, what are they both doing? What did Harry Truman famously, I don't remember if he literally had this, but it said he did, have on the White House desk, the Lincoln desk in the White House, a plaque. The buck stops here. They kept passing the buck. Not my fault, so-and-so tricked me. Not my fault, so-and-so tricked me. What is, even though he earlier, quote unquote, confessed and the Green Knight absolved him, what has Sir Gawain just now done? He's shown my nature's still good. It's because I was tempted. Meaning, he hasn't learned the lesson. So he goes on and on. And then he says, but I will take the belt. Line 24-29. God repay you for that. Let me back up. 24-25. Beguiled were they all. By women they thought kind. Kind there means natural as well as nice, gentle, courteous. Since I too have been tricked, then I should pardon find. Because I've been tricked like all other men have, then, yeah, God, he's almost suggesting God owes me a pardon. But I will take the belt. I accept it gratefully, not for its wonderful gold, nor for the girdle, nor its silk, nor its pendants, blah, blah, blah. Why? He says, I will keep it, 24:33, as a sign of my failing. And when I ride in triumph, recall with remorse the corruption and frailty of the perverse flesh. How quick it is to pick up blotches of sin. Pick up, what does that mean? Just, riding on through the forest, pure white as snow. I'm so wonderful. Nothing, and then, sin just kind of jumps on him. Because that's the language he's using. He hasn't accepted yet that he isn't already blotched with sin. That according to the Catholic Church, based upon St. Augustine, his very nature is marred. He thinks being a chivalrous, courageous, virtuous knight can wipe all that out. Okay? And so when pride in my knightly valor stirs me, that is, when I think of myself as, oh, what a wonderful, valorous knight I am, and my pride rises, I will look at this and it will humble my heart. Now, he's starting to get the idea there. Because according to the Catholic Church, most Protestants also kind of accept this, and the Eastern Orthodox does. The number one sin, the chief sin, is pride. Why? Because it's the sin of Satan. I will be like the Most High. Okay? Satan said. But one thing, if I can ask you, if you won't offend you. Since you are the Lord of the country I've dwelt in, honorably treated in your house, may he reward you who holds up the heavens and sits upon high. What's your real name? I want to be able to tell, Arthur and the others who you really are. He goes, oh yeah, Bertilac of Hog Desert. Green Lake by the high desert. So that later on, 18th, 19th century scholars were running all over the Lake District trying to find this location. Okay? Through the power of Morgan Le Fay, who lives under my roof. Le Fay is not a last name. It is Morgan the Fay. A Fay is a fairy. Morgan was according to most Celtic mythology and such, she would be what is called today a witch, a sorceress. And not just any witch, any sorceress, tops, goddess, also in some versions of Celtic mythology. And her skill and learning, well taught in magic arts, she has acquired many of Merlin's occult powers. For she had love dealings at an earlier time with that accomplished scholar. In other words, they were lovers. And she learned a lot of Merlin's tricks of the trade, so to speak, as all your knights know at home. In other words, all the knights of the Round Table, they've heard stories about Morgan. Morgan the goddess, therefore, is her name. No one, however haughty or proud, she cannot tame. Okay? She sent me in this shape to your splendid hall to make trial of your pride. The your isn't necessarily specific to Sir Gawain's. It's Camelot's. And to judge the truth of the great reputation attached to the Round Table. So, notice, one reason he was sent is to judge the truth of the pride and reputation of the Round Table. Okay? She sent me to drive you, and again, I don't think it's specifically Sir Gawain, demented with this marvel, that is to dement the people of the Round Table. What does that mean, to dement? J.K. Rowling creates dementors. Well, if you have a mentor, someone who's to advise you, guide you, counsel you, help you be all you can be, not the army. A dementor is one who does the opposite. Doesn't guide you, gives you ill counsel, tears you down rather than build you up. She wanted to do that. Why? To have terrified Guinevere and caused her to die with horror at that figure. So she wanted to test the pride, test the reputation of the Knights of the Round Table. She wanted to drive them all crazy. And notice he ends with this. And I think it's kind of like, this is her ultimate goal. This is what everything funnels down to. She wanted to kill Guinevere. Why? What did Gwynnie do? Well, according to many versions of the Arthurian saga, what's Morgan Le Fay's relationship with Arthur?
Are they lovers too?
Yes. Half sister
I
and lovers. Yes. Big eyes.
didn't know about that one.
Child, Mordred, who becomes Arthur's slayer. Child / nephew becomes Arthur's slayer. Again, in some of the versions, not in all of them by any means. Okay? That is she who is in my castle, the very old lady, the one who led the beautiful one by her left hand. Well, that fits. If it's Morgan leading with her left hand out to his wife's right hand, what is left in Latin again? Sinister. She's sinisterly leading. Okay? Oh, and by the way, she's actually your aunt, Arthur's half-sister. The Duchess of Tintagel's daughter, whom noble Uther afterwards begot Arthur upon. Okay? She's not Uther Pendragon's daughter. She's the wife of Uther. She's the daughter of the woman at Tintagel that Uther essentially raped. She put in a sleeping spell and other stuff. Okay? So, you got to come back. You got to visit your aunt. She really wants to see you. Moreover, my servants all love you, and so will I, blah, blah, blah. Sir Gawain, nope, I can't. Don't have time. So, he makes his way back home. He finds Arthur, 2492. They kiss him, etc. He describes all the hardships he endured. He tells them about the lady's wooing. He tells them about the belt. He shows them the scar on his neck that he received, line 2499, for his dishonesty at the Lord's hands in rebuke. Tormented by his tale, he groaned for grief and hurt. The blood burned in his face. That is, his face was red with shame. What happened to the pentangle? We were told it was made of interconnected knots. Well, what happens to a knot if you pull one part of it loose? It all falls apart. And Sir Gawain says, "See, my lord," and he holds up the girdle. "This belt caused the scar that I bear on my neck. This is the injury and damage that I have suffered for the cowardice and covetousness that seized me there, like they came out of nowhere and took control of me. This is the token of the dishonesty I was caught committing. And now I must wear it as long as I live, for a man may hide his misdeed, but never erase it." And whether Sir Gawain is aware of it or not, I think the author is suggesting that misdeed, that's the marred nature. That's the original sin. Okay? That St. Augustine says everybody inherits from Adam and Eve. The Eastern Church doesn't use the term original sin. The Orthodox Church. It calls it the ancestral sin. And what it means by that is Adam and Eve set, quote unquote, sin into motion. They brought evil into the world so that now we live in a world with that possibility. It's illness, the way the Eastern Church looks at it. For a man may hide his misdeed, but never erase it. For where once it takes root, the stain can never be lifted. In other words, you can say confession. And everything up until that point will be confessed and cleaned. But, and this is the problem Martin Luther had, which we'll be talking about in about a week and a half maybe. You leave confession, Martin Luther did. You leave confession and you immediately think of something that's a sin. That is, you think and create, you sin. I gotta go back to confession. Okay? We'll talk about that later. The king consoles the knight, and the whole court laughs loudly about it. And what do? They all take to wearing a green sash. They don't wear it around their waists. They wear it as a baldric, shoulder to hip. Charles is going to be crowned in May. You're going to see an awful lot of men, I think now women too, who are going to have a green belt that they're going to wear as a sash. It's the knight, they are knights and ladies of the Garter. Okay? And that became part of the renown of the Round Table. Whoever afterwards wore it was always honored, as is set down in the most reputable books of romance, etc., etc. And then you get the final phrase, honneur soit qui mal y pense. Okay? Old French, evil be to him who evil thinks. Now, that can mean, because it's interpreted variously, evil will come to him who thinks evil. That's one meaning of it. Or, if you think it is evil, it is evil. The reverse of that is, if you think it is good, it is good. Hamlet says, talking about thinking, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern say, Hamlet's thinking Denmark is a prison is what makes it a prison. And they say, we think it not so. Hamlet says, well, then it's not to you. Thinking something is good makes it good. Thinking something evil is what makes it evil. Okay? Notice, it's the motto embroidered on the blue velvet garter worn by Knights of the Garter, the highest order of English knighthood bestowed by the sovereign. According to Froissart, a French chronicler, Jean Froissart, in his Chronicles of the Crusades, the order was instituted about 1344. The poet's use of the motto has not been accounted for, which is an enigmatic statement. What the editor means is, we don't know why the poet puts this here. Okay? Why might the poet put it there? Does Sir Gawain actually have to do a quote-unquote sin, act it out, for it to be a sin? It's up here. Christ says you don't have to actually commit adultery to be guilty of adultery. A man who looks at a woman and lusts in his heart, that's the same thing in God's eyes, so to speak.
So that memento mori for how easy sin can befall someone.
He needs to practice more memento mori. Memento mori, reminder or remembrance of death. Portraiture, late Middle Ages throughout the Renaissance. You'll see somebody all dressed up in finery, and somewhere in the room, Erasmus is probably the most famous one. It's a famous portrait of Erasmus, the Dutch scholar. And he's sitting there, and I think in the one I'm thinking of, I'm almost positive, he has his hand on a skull. Why? It's a reminder, me in all of my intellectual glory, this is what I'm going to become. This is why you have the grave digging scene in Act 5 of Hamlet and the skull of Yorick thrown up. It's a reminder. Hamlet may be in the pride of his life now, prime of his life now. We all die. The thrust of that is Hamlet's lines, in Act 5, Scene 2, I think it is, when he's talking with Horatio, getting ready for the dueling contest with Laertes. And he says, if it be not today, it'll be tomorrow. If it be not tomorrow, it'll be today. The readiness is all. They haven't used the word death at all in that scene. But that's what Hamlet's talking about. The readiness to die at every moment. That is everything. Notice Sir Gawain, with all his courage, with all his bravery, with all of his chivalric glory, wasn't actually ready to die when he met the Green Knight. Okay? Stop there for Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and go to Chaucer. Just a couple of, how much do I want to get into this? I'm not going to talk about all the Canterbury Tale stuff. For Thursday, I am going to talk a little bit about the general prologue. For Thursday, if you haven't already, read the general prologue and the Wife of Bath's prologue and tale. Okay? General prologue is about 790 lines or so. And in it, Chaucer introduces us to all of the characters who are going to go on the pilgrimage to Canterbury. Okay? And he's going to, by introducing us to them, he's going to describe them. And in describing them, he's doing two things. This is really important for understanding Chaucer. He's telling us how the people want to be viewed. That's one thing. But he's also giving us information about how they really are. Okay? And those two things aren't the same, and they don't necessarily agree. Just kind of like Sir Gawain, right? The pentangle kind of shows us how Sir Gawain wants to be portrayed. And then we see the real Sir Gawain in his interactions with the lady and the knight. Okay? So we get introduced to a wide variety of people. And Chaucer begins, read the introduction. I'll talk a little bit more about Chaucer on Thursday, if I'm hoping to. Turn the page. Good grief. He starts with a big, long adverbial phrase. Begins with line 1, and the adverbial phrase ends with line 12. Juan dat de prelewittische sota, de drocht of marriage hath perset to the rota, and bought that every vine and switch liture, of which virtue engendered is the flower. One zephyrus ek with the sweater breath, in spirit hath and every holten hath, the tender croppus and the young isana, hath in the ram is half course irona, and smaller fool is mak and melodia, that slepen all the nicht with open ear, so pricketh him in their courages, van long and folk to go. When April with its sweet showers breaks up the drought of March and winter, then what? Then people want to go on pilgrimages. What's he getting at? What have people been suffering until April comes? We didn't have this maybe I shouldn't say we. Yeah, I think it's safe. We didn't have this experience in Murfreesboro this winter. February here is usually cold and dreary and blech. February was warm. There was a lot of sun. I was working outside one day and it was literally 80 degrees in mid-February. He's talking about suffering from what experience? What two-word phrase? Cabin fever. Cabin fever is when you get locked up and you can't get out. Okay? Britain, London, a lot farther north than we are. It's north of the 45th parallel, if I remember correctly. Okay? So he talks about, he found himself in Southwark, line 20, at the Tabard. Southwark is an area just south, it's on the south bank of the Thames River, just south of the city of London. The Tabard is an inn. It's no longer there today, but Southwark is. That area is still called Southwark. You can go to Southwark Cathedral, okay, as an example. In fact, you can walk the Canterbury Trail, starting at Southwark at about the cathedral, because the cathedral wasn't there when Chaucer was alive. The cathedral was newer than that. And you can walk essentially the same path, ride, etc., that Chaucer and the Pilgrims take. So, they get to the Tabard, or Chaucer gets to the Tabard, and he finds, when he gets there, line 24, 9 and 20 in a company arrived. So 29 people. And they arrive there, that's their jumping off point. That's their meeting point, if you want. Because from there, they're all going to go to Canterbury together. So Chaucer's telling us, there's 29 people. I'm coming. So that makes what? That makes 30. Okay? And then there's the host at the Tabard Inn. This guy's name is Harry Bailey. It's his real name, real character. We know this. Okay? And Chaucer gives us an introduction to all of the characters. And then at the end of the general prologue, he says, the host came up with an idea. You're all going to Canterbury. Tell you what, let's do this. I'll come with you. And each of you will tell 2 tales going and 2 tales coming. And I will judge who was the best tale teller. And whoever is the best tale teller, all expenses paid. And the implication is we'll all kind of pitch in and cover that person's costs. Now, obviously, that person's going to be paying his or her costs on the way there and partially on the way back, but they'll be reimbursed. But you all have to agree to it. All 30 of you have to agree to this. And they're like, cool, we'll do it. All right. So what are we told at the outset? How many tales are going to be? 120. Chaucer only completes, I don't remember off the top of my head, I think it's in your introduction, it's 22 or 24. Why does he want to write 120 tales? Your introduction mentions, yep, Boccaccio, who wrote the Decameron. Okay? The Decameron is about a group of nobles in Italy, outside Florence, I think, I'm not positive. About a group of nobles in Italy, who have left the town and gone off to a villa. Why? Plague. And so they're camping out, so to speak, at this villa. And to while away the time, they each tell a tale. 10 people each tell a tale every night over 10 nights. It's 100 tales. It's called a framework device. Okay? Boccaccio needs a way to get these 10 people to each tell 10 tales, so he puts them in a room 10 nights to while away, probably based upon Scheherazade, okay, from the 1001 Nights, okay, where a girl has to tell a tale every night to stay alive, or the prince is going to kill her. And she tells a tale for 1001 nights, and by the end of it, he forgets to, falls in love with her, and such. Okay? So, Boccaccio creates this framework. Chaucer has read Boccaccio. He was in love with French and Italian literature. Read them both in the original. And he says, I see your Boccaccio and I raise you, or I see your Decameron and I raise you 20 nights. He's going to out Boccaccio. He thinks, I can do this. He doesn't start till probably late 1380s. He dies in 1400. He only gets to 22, 24 tales. Now, almost all scholars say the Canterbury Tales is incomplete. Chaucer didn't finish it. Why? he doesn't write 120 tales. My Chaucer professor, a guy named Charles Borman, who was one of the major Chaucer critics of the 20th century, okay? Textual critic of Chaucer and all that kind of stuff. He actually argued in class, it is complete. And he gave what I think is still some pretty good evidence. Because within all of the tales, if you read all of the Canterbury Tales, you have various points. There are 2 or 3 points later on where the host says, okay, now we're half done. They haven't told 60 tales. Moorman argued that's Chaucer's way of saying there is no way on God's green earth I'm going to write 120 tales. So I'm revising the contract now. And then when we get towards the end of the Canterbury Tales, before the Parson's Tale, the host says, now we have 1 more to go. And then we're complete. And Moorman argued that was Chaucer, again, saying, I've got 1 left in me. And then I'm done. Okay? It's 9:26. Okay, we'll stop there. I really want to try to do Wife of Bastille, but I think we're going to have to take into the following week. A week from today, we do not have class because I have to take my wife in for surgery. I might use that to do a background video. I don't know yet. But we'll try to cover the main parts that I need to of the general prologue on Thursday and the Wife of Bastille.